Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're zooming in from in the United States and the world. We are so excited to have you here with us. My name is Susan Soleil. I'm with the Charter for Compassion. And this is our Housing is a Human Rights series. This is our fourth one. Our first one was an introduction with 6 people that were present to talk about their program. And then we've had 2 others that really drilled down and gave specifics. We now have our third one, and it's called The Other Side Village. It's located in Salt Lake City, Utah. And I'll share that I'm zooming in from Salt Lake City, Utah. So this little project has a special place in my heart. Felipe.
Thank you, Susan. My name is Felipe. I'm here with the Charter for Compassion doing marketing and, helping out with the webinar. I'm very, very excited for everyone to be joining us from around the world. Just like Susan, and this might sound a little biased, but I also live in Salt Lake City, Utah. So just like she said, this project is like very close to us. And so we're very excited to be able to showcase, what they're doing in our beautiful city. Just to let you know, this episode will be recorded. It's being recorded and then will be posted on YouTube and then on our YouTube channel, and then will be Facebook premiered on Friday morning. If you are registered, you will be receiving an email with all these links. And we hope that you feel inspiration from our guests, from the other side. And yeah, Susan, back to you.
Thank you. I really don't want to take another minute because I know between your presentation, Tim, and all of the questions that will come, we want to give you as much time as possible. So I do want to turn the time over to you, and thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate the opportunity, Susan and Felipe. We welcome anyone who is in the Salt Lake area to come by and visit us, and we'd love to share what we're planning. My name is Tim Stay. I'm the CEO of the Other Side Academy and of the Other Side Village, and we'll talk about what the difference is between those two as we go along. And I also want to acknowledge the 2 previous entities that you've drilled down deep. We've reached out to both of them, and they've been incredibly sharing and supportive, and it's just been wonderful to see the collaboration and the willingness to share best practices from them. So we're really appreciative for all of their generosity in helping expand this model. I'm going to share my screen here. Our plan is to create a community with permanent supportive housing for over 400 people, and these are focused for those who are chronically homeless on the streets of Utah. We want to instill a peer accountability model that we believe will keep the community safe, clean, and orderly, and then to run social enterprises within that nonprofit that allow us to be self-sufficient and not dependent on government and donors, and allow us to do what's best for the residents. We call the residents neighbors or villagers. We have our target population is those who are chronically homeless. Many may have mental health illness, many may be physically disabled. We expect most of them will be single, but there may be a few case-by-case couples that come into the village. We will screen for those who have sex offenses, arsonists, people who aren't chronically homeless. This isn't a transitional solution. This is really for those who've been stuck on the streets and have struggled to get off, or stuck in transitional housing and can't find a next step. This is really targeted for the people here in Utah, so people can't move, show up from another place and come in. We really look at 6 guiding principles that has helped us in our design of the Other Side Village, and I'll go through each one of these as we go through the presentation. The first is a viable transition from the streets to a permanent home. We understand being on the streets is chaotic. It's um, often unsafe. You're often battling addictions. There's getting used to a stable, secure, safe community can be an adjustment. So we've come up with something that we're adding to the Other Side Village, which we call the Welcome Neighborhood. The Welcome Neighborhood really is a transitional place where people coming from the streets or from the shelters, uh, they have a place to stabilize, they have a place to acclimatize and to prepare for the village. We'll work closely with our mental health partners and with um, our own village coach um, mentors that we'll talk more about. And it could be for a few weeks up to a number of months. And we're looking at this as being a transitional place. So as people move in and they um, can live there, and then at the end of the time, they'll be better prepared to say, am I really ready to make a commitment to live in a permanent village, have that more independence, but still have the support, case managers of the wraparound services, and be part of this larger neighborhood. So we think that this is one unique aspect of our village that we're providing that we haven't seen a lot as part of the permanent supportive housing. Um, Another principle that we are following is that we're building this in a way that we're building a home that we would want to live in. And this is one of our very first homes. In fact, we just had a, public relations news conference yesterday where this home was built by University of Utah students, designed in their School of Architecture, and then they built it, and it just got delivered this weekend. And so it's in a temporary location until we finalize our site. But the the students transmitted the home over to us. The mayor, Mendenhall, was able to speak, and we were able to have a wonderful ceremony. So this is available for tour. If you're in Salt Lake, we'd love to have you come by and give it. So we're looking between um, 250 to about 400 square feet for a home. Um, and it's going to be a home. This is a picture inside of it. You can see how beautifully it's furnished. Bedroom. We'll have a bathroom, a toilet, sink, and shower. Um, uh, It'll be a kitchen with a fridge, a microwave, sink, stove, all the appliances, and then a living room where a place to watch TV, a place to have friend over, a place to eat. So we're really looking at it, and then we'd have heat and AC. So with a cold climate in Utah, we feel like it's important to make this and uh, a place where people can come and live and be comfortable. And again, it's a place that I think any one of us would be comfortable living in. So that's one of our principles. The second one is a neighborhood that is safe, beautiful, nurturing. So this is a conceptual drawing of what the total neighborhood would be like. In the front, we have some um, retail, the medical clinic, an event space. This is areas where neighbors can come and people from the surrounding communities can come. And it's kind of a place where the two communities can intersect and interact with each other. And so how do we create a nurturing community? One is by providing a wraparound service. So we're going to have a medical and mental health clinic. We'll have visiting dentists who can come and help take care, and visiting veterinarians that can help take care of the pets. As we grow in our early phases, these won't be available on a everyday basis, but we'll be able to have them on a regular basis. We're looking to have an open air event space, so we can have things like farmers markets, car shows, craft markets, and again, the surrounding community can come and participate. And these can be also opportunities for our neighbors who live in the village to be able to have employment opportunities, to be able to help staff set up, clean, operate, run a cash register. All of these things are opportunities on site that the villagers will be able to work. We're looking at having a performing arts center where we can have neighboring, where we can have local and national performers, local cultural groups, debates, um, have it be used by other community partners in the area. Retail spaces that we envision having a grocery store and fruit stand, things like a hair and nail salon, coffee shop, a deli. Again, these all create employment opportunities for on-site employment opportunities for our neighbors, plus opportunity to bring these services to the surrounding neighborhood. The location where our village will be is in kind of a food desert, so being able to have a local food market there will be really helpful. Just like Community First has, this is actually a picture of their community inn. We're looking at having our own community motel where we can have people come and stay in and do a nightly rental, and that this becomes another revenue source for the village and employment opportunity. Then to help create it safe, we're going to have it be a gated community with cameras, controlled access. Visitors will have to check in. Visitors who violate the rules won't be allowed back in. So we can control who comes in, who's there, and so the neighborhood can be safe and secure and free from the chaos of the streets. A third is a community that helps me be my best self. And to understand what we mean by this, to understand our organization. The Other Side Village is a subsidiary of the Other Side Foundation. Its sister organization is called the Other Side Academy, which was started in 2015. The Other Side Academy is helping those who are coming off the streets. We've got campuses in Salt Lake and in Denver, and it's helping. Our average student at the Other Side Academy has been arrested 25 times, and 90% of them have been homeless. They're going in between jail and the streets and cycling back through that. So we've got over 100 students in Salt Lake and over 50 students in Denver. And these are men and women who are working to put their lives together. It's a 2.5-year program, and as they transition out, they move back into society and get jobs and become productive members of the community. And we've had just incredible success seeing these people transform their lives. And one of the core models of the Other Side Academy is that we build a peer culture by making you responsible for your peers from day one. So we call it 200% accountability, where everyone's responsible for taking care of each other. And when there are behaviors that are antisocial or destructive, those are called out. And we do it with in 3 ways. First, we do what's called a pull-up. When someone is misbehaving, if they tell a lie, if they're manipulative, if they're not working hard, if they violate one of the rules, then it's your responsibility, if you see that, to say something about it. So if I were to say an inappropriate comment, then one of my peers would say, "Tim, we don't talk like that here." And my only response would be, "Okay." And then once I got pulled up like that, it would be my responsibility to pass. I would take that information and I'd talk to my tribe leader, another peer who's overseeing a group of students, and the person who pulled me up would tell. So there's no secrets. Everyone knows everything about everyone's actions, and it's really quite a remarkable environment where anyone can pull up anyone based on their behavior, and and then they pass it and share it to the surrounding peer community and the leaders that are in. And then a couple of times a week, we have an opportunity to address those behaviors in an encounter group setting where those in the community can address each other, and the people around me could address me about my inappropriate comment, and how that impacted those around me. If I said something sexist or bigoted or inappropriate, they could talk to me about how my behaviors was impacting others, and I can have a chance to defend myself if I want to, or I can accept and say, here's what I'm learning from it. And we found this model to be incredibly powerful in helping change lives. And really, what the Other Side Academy does is help focus on those underlying behaviors that led to the criminal activity and the addictions. And we found if we can really work on those underlying behaviors and help people be accountable, have integrity, and learn how to love and care about another person, that those underlying behaviors dissipate and there's no longer the need. And what we found is that this has been an incredibly effective in creating this culture of accountability. All of our students get tested on a regular basis through adult parole and probation while they're in the program. And we haven't had one dirty drug test in the last 6.5 years. It's that tight of a culture. We've had over 200 graduates to date, and every one of them are full-time employed upon graduation. And then as we've looked at all of our graduates over the years, 88% of them have remained crime-free. So that's before, when they first came in, they were close to 100% recidivism, with average student being arrested 25 times. Now we're seeing that drop down to 12%. And if they stay longer, they're able to, that number goes even lower. So one of the things we're doing different than others is that we're going to have the village be a sober community, and people may ask, how will you keep it a sober community? And again, it's this culture of peer accountability that we think we understand so well at the Other Side Academy, that we'll be able to translate over into the village and have that peer accountability, because we think it's really difficult to try to put your life together if drugs are readily available around you and people are getting high and it's easily accessible to be able to get access to those. We think you need to have some distance, and we want to create a safe space for those who really do want to change their lives to be in. So we're going to make the village a sober community. So what happens if someone relapses? If they're a permanent resident, they can be temporarily assigned back to the welcome neighborhood. They'll have the opportunity to get detox or drug treatment services, and when they're stabilized, they'll be able to return back to their home in the permanent portion of the village. So this gives a place where we can deal with mistakes, and we understand that those are going to happen from time to time. And we're trying to set up a mechanism where they can make their way back into the community. So we're going to create peer accountability by neighborhood. If you can see in this picture, we have two neighborhoods, and they're kind of in circles. If we could get closer, you would see that all of these homes are facing inward, with a porch on the inside of the circle rather than on the outside. So each of these circles is their own neighborhood, and that's where the peers are going to be holding each other accountable. So if I'm keeping my yard messy and littering all over the place, my neighbors can talk to me about it. If I'm disruptive at 2 a.m. in the morning, my neighbors can talk to me about it. But really, we see that the challenges and issues of keeping that culture going to be dealt with neighborhood by neighborhood, and holding each other accountable, just like it's worked so well at the academy. So we'll have this peer social accountability system. We'll handle most of the daily issues, like I was showing, neighborhood circles, and we'll handle the next level of problems. And the circle leaders will be elected by the neighbors. They'll employ a restorative justice type approach. And then if there's something that's dangerous and or life-threatening, we'll certainly bring in the local authorities. But we think we can really handle the majority of the issues internally rather than relying on outside authority to come in and solve the problems. And today in our society, that isn't true for most neighborhoods. Most neighborhoods rely almost entirely on outside authority to take care of those issues. So we think we can change that dynamic there. Another principle is that we're going to make available a job that works with the challenges of those in the village. As we said, many of them are going to have mental health challenges, and we are, by us running our own social enterprises, we'll be able to have that patience, we'll be able to have that flexibility. If someone's only able to work a few hours a day because of that's the capacity they have, we'll be structuring our social enterprises to allow that. If someone does better working outside versus inside, if someone works better doing something repetitive, or someone needs a lot of change, those are all different changes we work. And we feel like we have a really good understanding of the social enterprises, again, because of our experience at the Other Side Academy. The Other Side Academy has, these are 3 of our businesses that we have: the Other Side Movers, the Other Side Thrift Boutique, the Other Side Builders. These are all run entirely by students of the Other Side Academy, and each one of them are rated top, one of the top rated companies in each of their industries respectively, and are tremendously successful in terms of quality and performance. In fact, over last year, we generated $7.3 million through the Academy, and that allows us to be self-funded, operationally self-sufficient, where we're covering 100% of our operational costs through the revenues of our social enterprises. And that's our goal. We believe that we can do the same thing with the Other Side Village, that we can take that. So this allows at the Academy, if someone, rather than having someone have to leave at the end of their 2.5 years, if they need more time, they can take more time, because we're not tied to making sure our funding isn't tied to our bed space or having set times that is required, and after that funding dries up. By being self-funded, we can do what's best for the students and not what's required by funders. We believe that's the same true for the village, that we can do what's best for the village rather than what's required by donors. So on-site employment opportunities, as we mentioned before, we'll have the retail shops, we'll have the event venues, we'll have this community motel, and we'll have an on-site light manufacturing facility that people can work in. So we'll have a wide variety of options that we can match their capacity to, and their skills to that. And if they want to get a job and work off-site, that's available too. But often transportation, working with a boss that doesn't understand the challenges you may be facing, those can be barriers to getting employment. And we feel like by running our own social enterprises, we can eliminate those behaviors, where we can accommodate and work with those with disabilities, we can generate revenue for the village, and we can allow the village to be self-sufficient. So the next is having an advocate that helps me with whole person change. And we think this is one of our most powerful elements of our model. We have what we're calling village coaches, non-clinical case managers. These are people who've had lived experience. Right now, the village coaches that we have are all graduates of the Other Side Academy. So they're experts in this peer accountability model of helping people hold each other accountable, and they can teach that. Our village coaches will live full-time on site. So they're there during the weekends and nights and after hours, and are part of the community, and are not only working with them, but they're living with them, and they understand what's going on. Right now, we're looking that one village coach could be assigned to 10 to 15 residents. But the real power of this model is that they're facilitating whole person change. In many cases, someone coming off the streets trying to turn their life around might meet with a case manager maybe once a week, maybe once a month. And as you look at all the things that have to change, everything from making sure your documentation is right, getting access to the right kind of health insurance, getting access to the right kind of social services, figuring out all the employment issues, figuring out often they need much more help than just 1 hour a week or 1 hour a month. And we think the village coach will be able to help them make sure they show up for their mental health appointments, make sure they're being stabilized on their medication. All of these things are possibilities, and we think this non-clinical case manager approach that it lives on site and it has this high intensity involvement in their lives will really be something that will bear fruit, and we're really excited about this model. So going through these guiding principles, we really feel like we've created our own special sauce. We feel like we really understand how to create peer accountability through the Academy. We feel like we understand how to create a community that feels like family, that takes care of each other, that where everyone contributes. We feel like we understand how to be self-sufficient through social enterprises, and feel like we've really dialed in on how to be successful with those social enterprises. We feel like we really understand how to guide people through whole person change, helping them change their life, find those hidden assets that have been underutilized or neglected or pointed in the wrong direction often, and being able to help them find a productive and fulfilling life. And then run successful social enterprises with the challenges, and find that those challenges can become assets. And so this is kind of the core of what we think we can do, that we can contribute to the efforts out there to say, let's find solutions to this really complex societal problem that we feel like we have a understanding that is unique to us. So where are we at? Right now we're focused on our pilot phase, where we'll build 60 homes. We'll build the medical health clinic. We'll have on-site social enterprise, and it'll be on about 8 acres. Once we're completed, we'll be looking at about 430 homes. We'll add an auditorium and event space. We'll have the other amenities like the grocery store and the retail shops, the hair salon, and the other amenities, and it'll be on a total of about 38 acres. We think this will work not because we provide houses, but we provide a culture that lifts and ennobles all it touches. And I'll open that up now for any question and answers.
Oh, wow. Thank you so much. So I do have a few questions. I know Felipe is getting the other questions. So you're working on the first 8 acres. The other 30 are all attached, right?
Yes.
So it'll be a huge campus that will be all attached to each other. I didn't see a lot of places to park cars. Do you have like a special garage where cars are being parked, or will there be space at some of these houses?
Let me share this screen again.
Okay.
Based upon what we've learned from Community First, they said about 10% of their neighbors have cars. You can see we have little cars, little notches here where cars can be parked. We won't have carports with the houses we're trying to put, but we've put parking around the perimeters of the village that those with cars would be able to park.
Thank you. I appreciate seeing that again, because I didn't see that when I was first looking at that picture. So that helps. I was also wondering the size of your village circles, about how many houses will be in kind of each circle.
We're looking between 25 and 30 houses in the circle.
Okay, so there might be then maybe 2 village coaches per circle,
Yes.
potentially, as it gets going. And those village coaches, do you see them being someone who has been on the streets, experienced all of that stuff, or are these more like the missionals that they do at Community First?
We're looking for people with lived experience who understand the peer accountability model. So missionals are there as volunteers. In our model, the village coach are there. They'll be paid, they'll be employed by the village, and have specific residents that they're assigned to.
Thank you. Thank you. And then that leads me then to my next question, because I jotted these down during your presentation.
Sure.
How can people come in and volunteer? I know you're just at the beginning stages, but do you see this kind of expansive way for people to come in to assist in some way?
Well, certainly as we build out the village, we're going to have significant needs. We'll be doing some building on site. We'll have a place for volunteers to come help build a home. We'll be certainly, as we get ready for landscaping and site development, we'll have needs to help with planting and with care and getting the facility. Once we're open, as we start having, as we get our medical and mental health clinic, we'll have a community space there, a community gathering space where, people could come in and teach a yoga class, or they could come and teach financial literacy, or they could help with legal issues. We'll have tremendous opportunities for ongoing help within the village.
Thank you. I do have one more question. Can I just keep going? Because
Sure.
Okay,
Go for it.
Jump in anytime, Felipe. I know that the Community First talked about a dignified income, and it looks like through your social enterprise initiatives, that will be similar. Do you have a similar name? What are you calling it?
I don't think we've labeled it yet, but we, our social enterprises will be available to any of the neighbors who are interested in augmenting their income. And if they're wanting to work full time, those opportunities will be available. And if they say, well, I only want to add a few hours a day, that opportunity will be available as well.
Okay, I do have one more question.
Sure.
So you talked about it being a sober community, and you talked about drug testing in the academy. Does that include alcohol? I'm just always curious.
Yes, we're including alcohol.
All right, that was the last question on my list. Felipe, please share the
Yes,
question.
absolutely. So thank you for our audience for chatting and putting some stuff there. I apologize that we had it disabled for a while. Thank you for letting us know about that. So that is now available for you to type your questions, but I do have a couple that have been sent to me directly. So, I mean, one of the main questions that most people have when we are on this webinar series is funding. How is the Other Side Village funded? How are you getting your capital for this project to be what it is?
It's really been remarkable. Many people when they pass someone on the streets, see someone on the corner panhandling, see someone laying on a doorstop of a business, um, many people feel a desire to say, man, I want to help. I don't know how to help. And there's a frustration and there's kind of an internal turmoil, I think, in all of us. And what we found is as we've announced this project, even before doing any sort of fundraising, we've just had an incredible outpouring from the community of people saying, here's a way I think I can help. This seems like a solution that's going to make an impact, and I want to do something about it. It seems like it's tapped into, for a lot of people, that frustration of saying, I don't know what to do. Now they know, have something to do. And we raised several $1,000,000 without even really doing any fundraising, of just people raising their hands and saying, I want to be a part of this. I want to do something. We've now organized a more formal capital campaign. We think phase one will cost around $15 million. But a lot of that is going to be contributed in in-kind services. We've had, for example, the house that's behind me, while the materials were paid for, all the labor was donated by University of Utah students. And we had another home built by some disadvantaged youth in Ogden as part of a construction program, the Youth Build program out of the Ogden Weaver Technical College. They donated all their labor, but they also donated all the materials. So a whole home was donated. And we've got probably 20, 25 of the homes already committed by different contractors, by different engineering firms, people who said, we'll build a home and donate it. And that's all going to reduce. We've got a large contracting firm who said, we'll build the medical center at cost, so they won't add any markup. They'll just cover their costs for the materials. So all of those things, we think, rather than the total 15 million, we think it could be that we, as far as cash that we'll need to raise, will be 10 or 11 million, that we can get 5 million or more donated in-kind services. We've had people who said, I'll donate, looking at donating all the beds for all the houses, and others all the furnishing for the house, the home decor. So every time we can get someone like that to help, it reduces our costs. We are applying to a number of large foundations in the state. Several of them have stepped up and made significant commitments. We're going after some of the state ARPA money that got allocated, but in this last state legislature, they set aside $55 million for deeply affordable housing and we've turned in a request for proposal. So if we can get, if we can get a few million out of that, we're also, the land that this is on is owned by Salt Lake City, and we're going through a process right now from Salt Lake City where they would lease it to us at a discounted rate, like $1 a year, and that would save $1.5 million from having to purchase the land. So those are the different funding sources that we're going after. And we feel really confident that this pilot phase will be able to raise all the money and get it. And once it's built, we feel even more confident we'll be able to get the funds to complete the project.
Yeah, thank
Wow.
you. Yeah,
Thank you.
that's amazing. Crazy that the community has been, putting so much into it. So, and thank you for also, because I wanted to ask you, like, how's your funding situation with, like, the government, so state and federal monies. So thanks for answering that as well. And so with the land usage, you were just saying, Salt Lake City is leasing it to you guys then, or is going to be leasing it?
That's the hope. We're going through a process right now. We're rezoning the land. It's passed unanimously through the Planning Commission. We now have to go before the City Council. And the other thing the City Council has to look at is there enough of a public benefit to lease the land to us at a discounted rate versus doing something commercially at normal market rates, and is that public benefit strong enough to justify taking this action? So that this public benefit analysis is also part of what the city council will have to look at and approve, and we hope that happens sometime in the next few months.
Wonderful.
That's exciting. I have to say, $1 a year, that's a really deep discount. That's practically free.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we think we might be able to find someone to cover that.
Perfect. So kind of like going with that on community and involvement and everything, how have you experienced the Not in My Backyard movement, the NIMBY movement? Have you had a lot of opposition with your project? What's going on?
We completely understand. When we announced this, we saw some people in the Glendale and Poplar Grove neighborhoods be rightly concerned, saying, boy, this is a large project. Is it going to, will my kids be safe? Will it impact my property values? Will there be an increase in crime? And this is one of the great opportunities of being able to share with people like Community First, being able to share their stats where there hasn't been any crime since Community First has, from any of their residents in the surrounding neighborhoods, there hasn't been that property values have actually increased, that being able to share that. Plus we have the history of the Other Side Academy in the close to 7 years that we've been open. We haven't had any violence. We haven't had any crime. This is over 100 people who have criminal backgrounds living together, and it's one of the safest houses in Salt Lake City. And in fact, crime in the neighborhood around the Other Side Academy has gone down since we've moved in, looking at the police stats. So we've worked hard to help share this information with the Poplar Grove, this peer accountability model with the Glendale community. We've had open houses. We've gone to community council meetings. We've created an advisory board, and many concerned citizens, some of them who weren't very much in favor of the project, have joined, and we meet monthly and talk about the issues. And I think this high level of interaction with them has really dispelled a lot of that. We did grassroots canvassing of the neighborhoods, and we found that of the people that we talked to, 60% were supportive of the village, 30% weren't quite sure what it was, and about 11% were opposed. So a much stronger group in favor of it. And so we're working to continue to communicate that. And we want to address those concerns, but for the most part, we felt really supportive by the neighbors and by the leaders in those areas.
Wonderful. So talking a little bit about amenities, will the houses have running water? Will they have AC? Do they have their own kitchen, or is there shared spaces for this? How is this going to be working in the village?
Yeah, so again, one of those principles, a home that we would want to live in. If I were to live in a home, I would want running water. I would want AC. I would want heat. I would want my own kitchen and bathroom. So all of those are part of our model. We will have neighborhood centers where they can get together and watch a game together, or play cards, or eat together if they want. But we will set it up where they can make their own meal in their house and be in their own house if that's what they choose. It's just like I would want to be able to have that choice. So we've set that up so each home should be able to be handle all the basic needs that people have.
That's awesome. And what a beautiful thing that you sort of in a way refer to the golden rule, treat others as you want to be treated. which in many ways is the beginning principle for the Charter for Compassion. And so it's true. Once we put ourselves in the shoes of others is when we understand their experience, or try to understand their experience a little bit better. And yeah, and with the mountain weather in Utah, and especially in Salt Lake City, it can be pretty extreme. Summers are really hot, winters can be really cold and snowy. And so it's good to hear that those things will be provided in the houses. So that's great.
Yeah, I can't imagine getting up at 2 in the morning and having to trudge through the snow at, when it's uh, 5 below outside to get to the bathroom. It just doesn't seem like something that I would want to have to do.
I did have a question about laundry. Are in those community facilities where there'll be a washer dryer? Okay.
Yeah, each community center will have a washer dryer. We'll have a gathering space. We'll have a place where, a large TV screen where they can watch movies or the game together, and have the basic amenities that, we're looking at having fire pits and a barbecue um, place where people can, again, trying to architecturally think about all the ways, how can we encourage community and connection um, uh, versus isolation.
Right. Right. I when you were listing all the things that your community coaches, no, village coaches would do, it's almost like what parents do for kids. Let's make sure your insurance cards are updated, and have you registered your vehicle, and all those things that you do once they launch, but they haven't quite got those adult wings going hard. So I really appreciated that.
Yeah. Well, and kind of like talking about coaches and everything, there's a question from Barbara on the chat saying, when someone is homeless for any length of time, the chaos and uncertainty can create continual hypervigilance and addiction to adrenaline. Settling in somewhere changes all that physiology, which means it's not just a social and mental transition, but a physical one as well. Are support personnel, or maybe the village coaches and services, trained to recognize and coach in those circumstances?
We believe so. We will have mental health professionals on site through our partners. We're partnering with an organization called Valley Behavioral Mental Health, and they'll have trained clinicians who will meet regularly with the residents of the village. If they need medication, they can access them. If they need special counseling or trauma care or other counseling, they make available. But part of the way that we can be aware or notice is our village coaches having had that lived experience, knowing what it's like to be on the streets, knowing what it's like to have that chaos in your life, and then being able to turn your life around. I think they'll also be able to recognize and be able to say, "Hey, it looks like you could use some help in this area. Let's get you talking to someone." And that's what we think where the village coach can really play
Yeah,
an important part.
absolutely. I mean, that's golden rule in practice right there too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was wondering about your is it called the welcoming place?
Uh, the welcome neighborhood.
The welcome neighborhood. So that's the space where it's almost transitional for them, right? They're able to, how are they going to be able to acclimate there before they then move into their own home within the village?
So it's if someone in the welcome neighborhood, if they come in and they were using the day before, they come in and say, boy, they're still, we'll say, hey, let's get you to detox services. Let's get you so you can get the medical help you need to come down off of what you've been on. Um, it, they'll start getting used to a schedule. They'll start getting used to um, being part of an accountable community. They'll be part of, uh, they'll be able to be part of our social enterprises and get a chance to taste and experience what it's like to be involved with. Some of our neighbors will have been out of the workforce for decades and being able to slowly integrate. Again, everything's at a much slower pace. It's to transition from the chaos of the streets to a safe, nurturing, um, highly supportive environment. You know, many of them may have had mental health professionals in their life before, but they haven't been consistent in seeing them. So we can get that consistency of seeing a mental health professional. We can get that consistency in having the medication, because if they miss 2 or 3 appointments and they don't get that new prescription, they can be off the meds that they need to stabilize. So having a really high involvement community that's very supportive and nurturing. Then as they to move into a sober community, you have to be willing to make those kind of commitments, and get going through this welcome neighborhood will allow them to get to that point of saying, is this something that's really important to me? Is this something, am I ready to make that kind of commitment to live in a high accountability environment that'll help me move forward in life? And if someone says that that's not for me, there's lots of other permanent housing that allow them to continue to keep using. It's not where we won't, we won't prevent people if that's what their choice is. There's other options out there. Most of the governmental housing allows that to happen inside that housing. So what we're doing is we're offering a choice in the marketplace for people who say, I don't want to live in that kind of environment. I do want to live in a sober environment. And right now, we don't see that option in the marketplace, and we think we can bring that uh, a new solution or a new option for people.
Thank you. And the welcome neighborhood, will it be little homes, tiny homes again, or is it going to be structured differently?
Currently, that's what we're thinking. We are evaluating if it makes sense to have it on site or have it off site. And I think that's something as we develop, we'll get a better insight into what's makes most sense and what's most beneficial to those coming into this.
Right. I love that you have thought through all of those components, right? How do we welcome them and provide a structure that will then make them be successful in the village? And all of the services you're providing, it's really beautiful. Thank you.
Absolutely. Another question that we have is this replicable? And have you, as the Other Side Village, been sort of like a result of you going and getting trained in other places? Like we saw that Community First and Square One has multiple sources of training, and you can get into that stuff. And so are you in the same process of trying to be able to replicate this, or did part of your staff go to any of the other organizations to learn more about how this works?
We've we're very much believers in not reinventing, but taking what others have learned and trying to apply it. So Community First, Square One, they've been very, particularly Community First, we've had numerous involvement with their organization. They've just been tremendous to us. And we've been to other tiny home villages around the country. We went to an organization in Spain that really works well with those with mental health challenges, and have developed a close partnership with them in trying to understand what's allowed them to be so successful. So we're very much, and so we feel part of our mission is to say, how do we, if we're successful at this, how do we help others do this as well? And certainly replication, or allowing us to be a demonstration model for other cities. We don't envision us opening other side villages and around the country, but we'd love to see 20 villages like this around the country that other communities have launched and started. We think, we think the work that others like Community First and Square One are doing are important and valuable, and anything we can do to help further the growth of this model, we feel that's part of our mission.
Absolutely, thank you. And honestly, that's one of the main reasons why we wanted to do this webinar, is so that our compassionate cities and partner organizations around the world can see that this is something that can be done with your community, with different, community partners, and inspire them to, once again, what you were saying, like opening more villages like this in their own places, in their own cities or communities. We have about 4 minutes left of this webinar. So if you have any more questions, please add them. Barbara gives you a little bit of compliment, says, so many places and programs like this are harsh and punitive, when we're talking about the sober community and whatnot. Congratulations on building a model that is human-friendly and supportive without being a strict patriarchal and paternal environment. So that's compliments to you right there. And another question that has popped out was, what's your timeline about? When are you thinking the Other Side Village will be? I mean, are you in construction mode? Like, do you have anything going on yet, or when is this supposed to be done?
Well, we do have a handful of homes built and being built, like this one that's behind me. That's an actual one that has been built, and we'll continue to build a handful of models. We have to clear a few of the regulatory hurdles first to be able to break ground on the site. Once we do, we want to have a whole handful of houses ready to transport and drop in place and be able to launch very quickly. We hope the groundbreaking can happen still this year if we can get through all the regulatory issues for that. But and then once we do, we hope we can have a whole slew of homes ready to put in place and people to move into.
Wonderful. So another question from the audience, they're saying, I am questioning that a separate home is always the best option. Would not be a dorm style be a very good option for some people with more support? Or did you guys consider that?
We have, and a lot of this is based upon the experience of like Community First. If you notice, we have a percentage of our homes that are duplexes or triplexes, so we do have some shared walls where in the current Community First model they don't, but they are looking at having some row homes in their next model, in their next expansion. And we, based upon our discussions with them, there does seem to be part of the population who really need their own space without shared walls, but there's some who can do okay, and that's something that we're going to look really closely at. And we think our pilot phase is a place where we can really learn and see what works and what isn't. There may be a chance where we have some multifamily housing as part of our model if that's what the data is telling us, that there are enough people that are going to be comfortable in a multifamily type housing more than just a duplex or a triplex.
Right. Thank you, Tim. I have to say, what I so appreciate about what you and your team have been doing is there's really it is foundational to the golden rule, treating our neighbors who are living on the streets as we would like to be treated. There's this high level of dignity and love and support that is just baked right into your model. And it has been such a delight to hear how your team and you have kind of created your own recipe. You've taken the community model and you've changed a few things, the Community First model. And I really appreciate all that you've given us today to think about. Thank you.
Absolutely. And just to clarify, there is an Other Side Academy in Denver, which is not the Other Side Village, as in like a village for, creative housing. Is that correct?
That's correct. The Other Side Academy in Denver is a replica of our Salt Lake campus. We launched that in 2019. And again, it's a 2.5-year transitional program for people who've destroyed their lives through their behaviors and want to try to put their lives back together again.
Great, thank you. That's it for the questions on my part, Susan. I just want to let people know in the audience that this recording will be available on our YouTube channel and will be premiered on Facebook Premiere on Friday morning of this week. And if you have any questions, you will be people that have registered to this webinar will be receiving an email with information about all these links, and also how to contact Tim if you have any questions about what's going on this webinar. So thank you, and back to you.
Thank you. So grateful for your time, for the very informative presentation, and for what you're doing here in Salt Lake City. We're so grateful.
Absolutely. And next week we have
Nate Schlueter from Eden Villages. Eden Villages is in 10 cities and 9 states. So they're going to have a different take on the recipe of how we help our neighbors who are homeless.
We visited them in Springfield, and they have a marvelous model, and they've been so helpful to us.
Oh, that's exciting to know. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. Thanks to your whole team. Please pass along our appreciation. Bye, everybody.
See you next week.